Hello everybody, and welcome to another tutorial in camera and lens repair. And this time I will take an old fellow, this Nikkor-O Auto. It's aperture 2 and it is 35mm old lens. So and I would like to re-grease it with some of this liquid moly. It's the brand, not the grease, but the grease is called LM47 and it's a MoS2 molybdenum grease, which I think is really good. It doesn't really work with the 55mm 2.8 because there are too many helicoids, but this I think it will be good. But let's jump into it, and we of course need some tools. We will need some screwdrivers, a 1.2mm flathead screwdriver, 1.8, and a 2mm and a 2.4mm. That's what I use. We will need a measurement here to actually measure how long the helicoils will be. I mean, before we take them apart, how long will it be? Now we also need a tweezer, which is very handy, and an old, this is just an old compass, which I have filed and grind, so it fits really good when working with the lenses. And I have just taken some notes during the process because I've been into it before, and I will talk about it as soon as we go on. Now, of course, we need two brushes, one for cleaning and one for re-grease the helicoils. Now let's speed into it. Before we take it apart, actually we can just jump into it. Now, I will begin with take out the front lens group, actually, not the front, what do you say, the name plate, the name ring, because this lens is a bit different from many other Nikkor lenses, that you need to unscrew the front lens group to come into the name ring, and of course go further into the helicoid system. And we also take off the back and the aperture ring and the shiny ring here. So let's jump into it. Now I have, as I said, been into it before, so it shouldn't be a problem. The front lens group was not that tight, but it will easily come off. And just unscrew it. So that, and then you can just jump into your hand. So this is how it looks, and put it aside somewhere, and then we can see the ring here. That of course, to come into it, I need to take off the focusing ring. So set it to infinity. That's the beginning. And then I will take my 1.8mm flathead screwdriver and unscrew the tiny screws around the focusing ring. There are 3 of them, so you have to use a screwdriver that fits really good, not so you will not damage the painting on the screw, on the screw head, of course. So it is. The focusing ring can sit a bit tight, so we have to wiggle it off a little. Something like that. Maybe it sits more tight in your lens than in mine, but this is how it looks, nothing special. And then we can see the little set screw here on the name ring, and for that I will use a 1.2mm flathead screwdriver. And as you can see, you probably can see, it's good to set a mark here where the infinity mark is, I mean the index mark here, both on this the focusing ring here. Set a mark there where it cannot come any further, of course, because of here. And then we should end up with the name ring at the same position. So just loosen it, there's no need to unscrew it. You will probably disappear this tiny set screw, and then unscrew it. So this is how it looks. Put it aside somewhere. And now I will go to the back and take off the mount. Of course I can just take out the lens assembly, just pull it out like this. We will not do anything with that. They have a screw here, which is not really a screw, it's more kind of a adjustment. So when you're turning this screw, it can go one side or the other, and it has to sit there. The aperture has to sit all the way over here, not over here where it's fully open, but it has to sit where it's closed, so we can just close the aperture here. So it has to sit all the way over here. Now put it aside, and then we jump into the mount, which I will use my 2.4mm flathead screwdriver. The screws can sit a little tight. It does not in my lens because I have been into it and make my notes. But in some of those old lenses, Nikon use a lot of thread lock. So there, and now it's off, and you can see there is a little fork here. Now just to mention that this ring here, with the fork, with the aperture connection, it also has a ring here on the back, but don't even think about take out those 3 screws here, because you probably can see here, in here, there is a lot of ball bearings. I don't know exactly how many there are, but if you take out those screws, then you will look into a funny evening putting the ball bearings back in the lens again. But let's go on. Now put the screws somewhere, and then the aperture ring. Before I take it out, it's a good thing to just make some marks where it should sit. Set it at 16 and set some marks here where you can have an idea of where it should end up. I was a little off with my marks, but well, it doesn't matter. It's just so the ring will not sit something over here if you just forget how it should sit when you took it apart. So it's good to make marks. Now there is a little screw on the back here, I mean on the underside of the ring, of the aperture ring, that needs to be fully unscrewed, because it goes all the way in here. Oh, sorry. It goes all the way, oh, difficult to see, I know. I will show it when we take it apart. So, out with that. See, the screw hole here goes into the underside of the lens, I mean the focusing helicoid, and you can see it comes out there. There's my index mark. Now, before we continue with anything, yeah, I will just take the shiny ring off too, and for that I will use my 1.8 millimeter. It's also good with a magnetized screwdriver, sometimes not. In this case it's really good. And there. So, off with that ring. And you will see how it looks in here. That's the helicoid key that prevent the helicoils from moving around. And this is just the index ring. Now, then we look into the naked helicoid system, and before we take anything apart we need to measure something, because we need to end up in the same distance from the back to the front of the middle helicoid, and we also need to end it up with the inner helicoid to the middle helicoid. So let's measure how it looks. There, you see in this lens it's 30.55. That's what the exact same thing I have written down before when I was in it. So and then to unscrew the helicoid key, which sits with two small screws in here and there, you need to set the lens at infinity. It will say it ended up here. As you can see, probably it cannot come any further. So then I can just yeah, maybe I should just unscrew the, yeah, I will unscrew the helicoid key with a 2mm flathead screwdriver. This can, it was the same in this lens, it sits really tight, so you really have to have a good grip and then unscrew it. Remember how it sits. If you put it in wrong, see the screws are really tiny. If you put it in wrong, it will not fit. So there, and then we just need the other screw, which you can so now, and then it's also important to have set a mark here so the 3 rings sit in line before taking apart. This is really important because there are no the repair manual does not tell anything about it. I haven't seen a repair manual for this lens, so that's why it is important to set marks before you take it apart. Just rearrange things here. Now, over this stop, so there and off that. Now, and then we begin to actually unscrew the helicoid. And first, as we see here, I have to turn a little over 1 turn till off at 1 o'clock. It will say from the very front. I will turn the middle helicoid from my starting point up to somewhere here, which should be around 1 o'clock. So my index mark here, then turn it, and then my key comes out. We'll put it in after. My index mark here, and then it comes off here. So this is why it is extremely important to set a mark where the helicoids separate. So therefore, set a mark here, close to the index mark, where the middle helicoid comes off. Off for that. And now we need to measure the inner helicoid in respect to the middle helicoid, which should be something like 5 millimeter in my lens. It could be different in yours. So measure here somewhere from the front here to the middle helicoid, and it should be something around, yeah, it depends on how you hold the measure here, but you should end up with something, yeah, almost 5 millimeter or so. It doesn't matter. It depends on if you have it a little out of angle here, it will, but yeah. Now I have to turn the inner helicoid ring a little over 1.5 turn till it comes off at around 7 o'clock. It will say my index mark here where I begin, and until down here at around 7 o'clock. So I will begin to just turn it, and the index mark is actually where the set screw that hold the name ring sits. It could be different in your lens, but I guess, just a guess, yeah. I will turn it 1 full revolution, and then I ended up here again, and then I will turn it a half, almost, yeah, that's a bit not correct, under half a turn until it comes off here. And there you can see it. So this is how it looks, and I can just clean the 2 helicoids, the 3 helicoids here, and then re-lube with the moly grease. So I will be back soon. And now it's time to, re-grease, and everything looks really good. We'll just clean with some lighter fluid as you say. Now, just to say, I forgot to take this, the inner aperture ring and the lock ring for that aperture ring. So just, yeah, sorry for that. It's of course in here, and we can just put it in. But I forgot to take it out, so, well. And it should of course sit something like that, and should not be, you should not loop this. It's not really necessary. Well, you could, but, well, we can just try, yeah. There wasn't any loop on this, because the coating here, I mean the paint is, whatever it is, the coating, yeah, it's extremely hard, so I think I will just, yeah, I'll just give it a really thin layer of lube, just on my finger, on just a really tiny amount. So that should be all fine, and it has to sit on this side of the helicoid key. So we will just put it in. No need for press too hard. It's aluminium, and then it's really good. Yeah, it can actually take some grease without any problem. And then just put this spring in. Maybe it can be a little difficult to put in. Let's see. And maybe we also have to give this a little tiny amount of grease. I would guess it should be all fine. So that's it. Not too much. And put it in. And hopefully it will work. And so it should sit there, not fully in. Yeah, it has to sit under the see, it sits correct there, but it needs to I need a dentist tool. So something like that, and then it clips in and sits correct. As you can see, before it sits above the I don't know what it's called, but it doesn't sit wrong, but now it sits correct, and it works really good, as it should. So we can just continue with the helicoid, I mean the grease. And I will just use a slightly amount of the this moly, which I think is really good, but let's see how good it is. Here it's just a small amount, and I find the makeup brush, which is really good for that. And we will just let's see, just begin with the inner helicoid. You'll just add it first and then screw it in, and then screw it out again, because in that way spread the grease on the thread, on the helicoid thread. So let's see. It's very exciting to see how it will go. My index mark here, and it will go on to the middle ring, which I have my off mark here. My index mark is up here, so at 7 o'clock something, this one needs to come in here. And you can maybe fiddle a little with the helicoid, then half a turn, then a full revolution here. And really, I think it works actually pretty good. I've tried the grease in other lenses, and I think it's really good grease, because if I put it into my freezer in 2-3 hours, and then take it out, put it on the heater, let it stay there for some hours, at around, oh gosh, well, one screw come into the grease, not good. Now I put it on my on top of my heater, which is quite hot, and let it stay there for 2-3 days or so, and it still does not separate. So I guess it's really good grease, and but maybe it depends on what helicoid thread it is. So let's see. Now let's put it in, and where's my index mark here? My off mark was in respect to the index mark on the outer helicoid, and the off mark is here. Yeah. So let's see how it will go. Fiddle a little with the helicoid. Don't push too much on it. It has to come in by itself. Wow. This is really good. So the grease is actually not separate at all. Off again. Wow. And since there is not, I have not added much, the grease will simply just spread on the helicoid as you use it. So I think it's pretty good. So there. And where did it go? Here. So now then we need to add the helicoid key, and it has to sit in that position when you put it in. If you put it that way in, it will not work at all. So it has to sit with the long, wider end towards the back, and the very short end to the front, of course. Now let's give it some small kind of loop here on the edge. Doesn't have to be much. There's also here, and that's actually that. And then I can put it in here, hopefully, something like that, and let it stay there. Now set the aperture, the aperture, the focusing ring to infinity as my 2 mark, and also the inner helicoid sits in line. And then I ended up with actually have the helicoid key sit in the correct position. So I can just put in the 2 small screws with my 2mm flathead screwdriver. That's it here. And so don't tighten it yet, we also have to have the other screw in. So there. And so there. And let's see how good it will be. Then move the focusing ring. Wow, this is really good. I mean, it has a good movement actually. So I really like this grease. Then tighten the screws. And then it should be all fine. Then we can add the stop part here, key, the half quarter moon shape stop ring. I don't know what the name is, but because I do not have a repair manual for this lens, but it works anyway. So there, and we can just try to catch it. So there, and then screw it in. So it's not much to do with the focusing system here. So it's a quite easy, in a way, lens to work with. Now let's see. Okay, goes really good. Then tighten them gently. You see, there are other marks here. Somebody might have set, maybe in the factory, I don't know. But then we have a fully, really good. I like that. I mean, I really like the grease, the way it works. So I think it's a winner. So now on with the index ring. Just put it over here, and then there are 3 screws. And then I need my my 1.8 millimeter. And put that ring on. There. Go a little backward to catch the thread if it's not correct first. So here we are. And then the second screw. So there. Tighten it gently. So where did it went? Here. So, and it really looks fine. Yeah, I will also add a little grease on the aperture spring here. It doesn't have to be much, just a little tiny amount. There. And let's see here where the aperture ring have to go, because I set in the beginning 2 marks here and 2 marks on the aperture ring, inner aperture ring. I can just move it all the way over here where it sits correct. That's smart, in my opinion, because it doesn't have to go all the way to the stop here with the 2 screws for the helicoid key. So it has to sit something like there. And yeah, I can just add the aperture ring. And you see the aperture ring sits correct because there is a hole through it here where the screw goes in, and in that way you will move the the aperture ring will move the inner ring. So we can just add it here. And let's see if there's any light through it. Has to be something like there. It will end up here in line with the one of the screws. It will say the opposite of the index mark here. Something like that. Maybe we have to move the ring a little. And if the screw meets any resistance, well, you have to move the inner aperture ring a little, so it can catch the hole in here. It will say there, and then tighten it gently. So. Now, next, the name ring will come on, and we'll just find, I should end it up, as you see here, it should end up the same place as I began, when I began. So I just turn it to catch the thread somewhere, and it says click, and you just turn it. Doesn't have to go full in, but maybe there. Just see if I have to turn it counterclockwise a little. But it looks like it's fine there. So there has to be a little gap. As you can see here, there's a tiny gap between the ring and the let's see if I can move it. Is it possible? No, I don't think it has to be fully screwed in. Maybe it has to sit there. Yeah, I would guess so. Why will it not turn? Hold on. Of course, it's difficult to grip the. We can just I'll just put it on again. It's not something like that. Maybe I have to adjust it a little. No, I don't think so. But I have to put in the lens assembly. And then I can just add this on here. I will put it will be the last part I put in, because I need to put the name ring on first before I put in the lens assembly. Now, set the ring, the aperture ring, to 16. Fully close the aperture there. This pin has to sit all the way over here. The guide pin is here, so I can just put it in and catch the gap here, and of course also the aperture fork on the back. Then slide it in. Maybe it sits correct. Yeah, it has, the gap is over here. Of course, the name ring has to come on after, before the the front lens screw. Yeah, I can just put the lens assembly in here, catch the fork here on the back, see the pin for the aperture, and then put it in, slide it in, and then have the lens assembly put in, and then wiggle it on. So now it's correct. Oh, sorry for that. And then that was something wrong. And then put in the nameplate, name ring, then put it in. That was something. And then tighten it as much as it can, but in respect to index mark here. So there. And so screw the set screw in as it sits correct. Now then flip over and put in the mount here, and the fork here has to go into the connection to the aperture here. So fully close it. As you can see, the pin down here, you might see when I push it, it should be fully open, but it has to be fully closed at 16. Now put in the fork here and catch the pin in there. Can be a little tricky. So there. Now then it sits, and then we can turn the mount a little so it sits correct, and if you can flip the aperture, now it works. You can open and close it as it should. So that's all fine. So we just add screws in here to the mount. Maybe you can add some thread lock, but I will actually jump into the lens sooner and make some cleaning of the lens element. That's why I will not use any thread lock on the screws on the back. But yeah, you could, but it should be the Loctite 222, which is the purple one. So there. And the last screw here. And there we go. So there. And here we are. Now, next is the focusing ring. As I have my ring aperture, focusing ring, the inner at infinity, so I will do the same with the focusing ring itself. And then press it in. It can be a little tight, but so. And it also looks fine. Then a 1.8 millimeter flathead screwdriver. So there, and the next one. And the last screw. So there. And then last, the front lens group, which I will just put in. Then catch the thread there, and with my lens spanner, compass, whatever name, catch the thread and then screw it in. So there. That's it. Wow! This grease is absolutely great. Not for every lens, but in this one, it works really good. So how about that? It's extremely good. So hope you can use the info about this lens. It's yeah. See you. Bye bye.